Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Ethics of Victoria 2, number 5b. So, we left off justifying a war against the Ottoman Empire. Our armies are more or less in position. We have 150,000 men on the border in Africa. We have our navy, not entirely ready, but they'll be ready when the time comes. And as, of course, has been the call for quite some time, we have Washington under occupation with 54,000 men in the American People's Republic, which we are not going to remove our troops from, except maybe in case of some sort of horrible emergency. We do have the ability to recruit more troops, and it looks as though we actually are recruiting a full new army, so that should actually be a pretty good deal for us right there. Our people are considerably militant, however, we have a good deal of reforms that we're still able to pass before we actually have to worry about it too much. And yeah, we're definitely at that phase where we can start looking towards the world to export our, I guess our long-term ambitions. We're going to go ahead with this, and we're going to go ahead and occupy every country in the world, at least every country in the world with a higher score than our own. The Austrians, I believe, are in a pretty weak place right now. 0 brigades, so they're not doing well whatsoever. They are the Ottoman sphere leader, so it's possible that the Ottomans, when we declare war on them, will drag Austria-Hungary into it, and they might be able to drag the French into it. The French are currently invading China, which is going well, due apparently only to battles. Slightly occupations, although those seem to be turning away. So hopefully the Chinese were able to overwhelm the French. We can go ahead and attempt to humiliate the Ottoman Empire. We'll go ahead and fund our navy to the max that we are able. And yeah, it's about time for that then. And it looks like our army that we're creating is entirely being made in North America, which is great news. We can get them all over there fairly quickly. Alright, let's go humiliate these Ottomans. And of course, that's just our justification. We're not actually going to just stop the war once we have got them to the point where they're willing to capitulate. And it looks like the Austro-Hungarians have actually joined the war. And that is very good in an odd sort of way. We'll see how it actually ends up playing out, but I do think that this will work in a favorable sort of way. Alright, so the war is basically the same no matter what. It ended up happening, at least in the initial stages. We're going to just roll on up into Ottoman Central Africa. This actually is very good for us in one specific way, which is that we can... Let's see, we have a rally point in Monrovia and another one over here in Libreville. So we can end that one, and now for the rest of time, or at least until we are brought out of this war, so hopefully until the rest of time, we will be able to march our African recruits through Ottoman Africa and up into the rest of the world, really. Over into Monrovia, where they will just form together, and those will be the central focuses of our African forces. Central focuses, they'll be the rallying point. Our African forces will rally to Monrovia through occupied Ottoman Africa. And hopefully they'll be able to do that, well, forever, really, for the foreseeable future. But that's anyway the initial phase. There's more to it after this, but we'll just see how it goes. No real reason to slow down. We are going to take quite a bit of attrition, it looks like. That's unfortunate, although not avoidable. It looks like we could have gotten electricity, which probably should have done. Nevertheless, we are where we are. Oh, what is this? The Ottomans are landing in our country. Well, we'll go take our forces over and just try to smash through that force. We will send our ironclads over and try to defeat their navy. We will rush back and maintain the occupation of Washington whenever we get the opportunity. So that battle's actually going much worse for us than I would have anticipated. We did kill more of their forces than they did of ours, and they did have a significant dig-in bonus, so it looks like that's gone away now. And yeah, there we go. Obliterated that force. We'll go ahead and send really these two groups back, and they'll maintain the occupation of Washington. This one group will just stay in our own country nearby. Looks like that army did not do very well in the fight, so we need to go ahead and recreate all of its infantry elements, which we can do in Africa. So we'll just ship that army off to Africa anyway, and then they should be okay there. Of course, all of our transports are currently in Africa, so we can't do that just yet. We won that battle and won it handedly, so we'll charge forward. Should not have those two units stacked on top of each other. That is very bad. So our armies are definitely going to be worse for wear after charging up through the deserts of Africa, which, you know, makes some obvious sense. I'd messed up by putting those two together, but it didn't seem like it did any actual harm in the long term, so we're probably fine. We're not going to outlaw slavery ever. That's our one concession to, I guess, staying. Essentially, this campaign is the campaign of us being a slightly more evil confederacy, so we're not going to abolish the institution of slavery under any circumstance. And that's just the way it's going to have to be. That being said, we can go ahead and influence Colombia. Interestingly enough, Colombia took over Ecuador entirely, which isn't really something you ever see, so props to you, Colombia, well done. Of course, the United States of Central America is long dead. I don't believe it even existed at the start date for this campaign, so that makes sense. We will go ahead and merge these two groups just so our transports get over here safely, and we'll load up those 18 divisions and send them over to Monrovia, where they'll meet up with their reinforcements. Alright, this group will actually just hold slightly behind the line, but not really move any further back. And once we take over some positions in North Africa, then we'll just send our navy over. So in fact, we may not want to rally our forces in Monrovia. We may want to rally them in somewhere like Tripoli, which in fact we're going to go take just to cut the Ottoman forces off. Alright, and we'll just rush these guys up ahead. And pretty soon we should be... Oh, okay, they have a not inconsiderable force right there, but we should just be able to destroy that pretty swiftly. And I'm actually very excited for this portion of the campaign, because this is really... we'll probably slow down just in a sheer game time to real time sort of sense, because we're going to be doing a lot more, or at least we're going to be doing a lot more per moment, I suppose. Oh, and it looks like we've basically trapped that one Ottoman army. That is great news. And we'll just keep these forces moving back and forth. We will load these guys up. We will send this first navy. It will just stop at Gibraltar. And the second navy will go and land in Tripoli. These troops are going to meet up in Monrovia, which is actually fine, because what we're going to do is have the other transports just wait and meet them there. Alright, so it looks like the Ottoman North African forces have been destroyed. They might have a few more hidden away, but I don't believe it. I imagine they would have sent those towards us. So they have 102 remaining brigades, which is larger than our entire army. I don't entirely trust that, to be honest. The AI always seems to have more brigades. It looks like they're trying to transport more troops over to invade us, so joke's on you, Ottomans, I suppose. I bet the Austrians have mobilized. Yes, they have. So they only have 12 brigades, but it's all just peasant levies, so we don't really need to worry about that too much. Let's see, trinket minimum wage, all of these things. We will give our people better minimum wages, since they are pretty upset, and they're going to be constantly upset because we're, well, going to be constantly at war. So it makes sense. War exhaustion is definitely going to be problematic for us throughout this campaign. And once we take over all of North Africa, which we have functionally done right now, we'll go run that troop over. We'll start loading all of our remaining armies into these transports. It looks like Greece managed to get control over... No, it doesn't, actually. I misinterpreted that. So we're going to take over these Ottoman islands. From there, we're going to blockade the Sea of Marmara. And in fact, let's go ahead and split off our transports from our actual combat navy. And we will even go so far as to split all of our commerce raiders away from our ironclads and other more modern, we'll say, ships. Alright, so let's see. This will be the actual combat navy, so we'll just rename it as such. and we'll rush them up. Let's see, do we have 18? No, we do not. These guys are not taking attrition. That's very useful. Alright, so the combat navy will do its thing. The third fleet is actually going to just be renamed. Whoops. First transport. And they'll just chill where they're at right now. The fourth fleet, we shouldn't really give them a name, but it'll just be... well, I guess various raiders. We'll just go with that. Not exactly a great name, but it kind of gets the point across. We'll send the combat navy forward. We'll split the other navy up and just start blockading ports. Alright, and it looks like we defeated the Ottoman Navy in at least a small engagement. They currently have 46 naval vessels. We can probably advance a little bit right there. We have activated fuel onto the world market, for ourselves at least. And we are taking some naval attrition over in these parts. Oh! Alright, we'll send the various raiders up, and in fact send the second fleet as well. I don't think we really have to worry about the Austro-Hungarians. They don't have any navy whatsoever. We did defeat the Ottoman Navy, and it's just chilling right there. Luckily, that appears to be on an island, so that's great news. Alright, so for us to actually blockade there, we're going to have to land across from Constantinople proper, or I guess Istanbul. And that's not really too much of a big deal. Get these various forces over there. We are dealing with a bit of an issue with other Ottoman forces existing. And let's go ahead and just influence some countries, add this one to our sphere of influence. Get these people to be friendly with us. Alright, so at the end of this war, we're going to be able, ideally, to, and let's just move these forces over. Ideally, at the end of this war, we're going to find ourselves in a position where both Constantinople and Vienna are under our permanent occupations. How exactly that's going to play out still remains to be seen, but that is the end goal. We'll go keep taking over these islands. And we've basically destroyed the Ottoman Navy, which is exactly what we were hoping to do. We'll go research electricity. Looks like we don't have the full 18 of these divisions yet, but they should be almost done, or at least on their way. In fact, I'm not sure what happened to them. We should have more coming. Because, yeah, we just built them. It's, well, it's 4 infantry. Alright, yes, so it is just the 4 infantry, so we will go ahead and send these transports up right now. Alright, so I just misinterpreted that. Alright, and we'll just put these guys back on the boats, and we'll just keep occupying various places. At the moment, it's not super important, but it will be over time. Oh, and what are these? Tunisian nationalists. We'll let them do their thing. We really have no reason not to let them. Looks like we are having a communist rebellion of our own, so we will bring this group down and just have them deal with that as they may. Probably a few over in our homeland. Turns out that's correct. We'll go hunt rebels there, and then they'll come back and help maintain watch over Washington. Alright, so we do have to worry quite a bit about popular uprising in our own country. That could be considerably problematic as the situations unfold. Alright, so what do we need to do with the Ottomans? Realistically, we could probably just leave Asia Minor on its own and just focus on taking over their capital. I don't really think that would be the worst thing, and we'll just hold them in a position where they're permanently unable to reinforce. Will the Greeks give us military access? They will not. That's unfortunate. Alright, so we might just go, I believe from here, I'm not going to test it, but from that island we should be able to march onto Anatolia. So what we'll do is we'll take over this island, we'll secure this as a foothold, and then we'll march over and take over Istanbul, kill all the Ottoman forces there, and then from there press into Austria-Hungary. Once we topple their central government, they should be unable to deal with all of the revolts that will just be occurring, especially in large multi-ethnic empires like the ones we're currently fighting. and that should basically prove to be the thing that destroys them in the end. Looks like the Ottomans have moved their forces into Asia Minor, so we might actually just be able to get away with a direct attack across into Istanbul, so we're going to try. And yeah, if we can just pull that off straightforward, then that's very good. And let's see. Right, this army needed that one group of infantry. This army will go deal with all of the communist rebels, which will kind of be a pain for it, but we will see. When can we declare war on Mexico again? We can declare war on Mexico right now if we so desire. And I suppose there's no reason not to, so we'll go ahead and create a new rally point. And we'll go ahead and just mobilize. So we're doing a lot simultaneously that could be problematic. This honestly is a fairly frequent thing in Victoria 2, which is pretty much why this isn't a Speedplay series, but had just another Let's Play. Because really, I don't think that I'd be able to coherently tell a story. I know I tried before in an earlier Speedplay video, but I guess I've more or less moved away from that sort of path. I hope you guys don't mind. And really, none of the comments have mentioned anything about disliking the slower pace of these videos. So, yeah, hopefully it's all good. Now, unfortunately, it looked like our army was trying to just go into the other navy from this current navy, which didn't make very much sense. But we'll just keep pulling these forces over, and it looks like we're definitely going to have to drop some troops onto Istanbul. Alright, and we're just going to cut off reinforcements, and that should also obliterate the Ottoman force. Alright, so we are losing control over some of our territories due to all of the communist rebels. Not so much in our mainland, where things are going decently well. Although there are still quite a few hostile occupations going on. But we'll be able to deal with that. Hopefully we don't end up inadvertently destroying these Tunisian nationalists, although we might. Alright, so that force was destroyed, that's good news. We'll leave this undermanned group just in the occupied territory. We will just go smash that one group. Alright, and we're probably in a good enough spot to just sort of leave this war on hold for a moment. Let's see. We've attacked the enemy. Let's see. Where is the first time the enemy began to attack us? We've been attacked. We're going to want to make those pop-ups, because that's going to be very significant. Alright, and then once this last force is destroyed, we'll go to war against the Mexicans and seize one or more of these states. It looks like Mormon nationalists are really doing their thing, which is potentially quite problematic. California nationalists have also risen up, and I don't really want to deal with them in independent wars, especially because I'm not actually sure if we would be able to. Not because we wouldn't be able to defeat them militarily, just because I don't know if we would have casus bellis that we could use against them. Alright, and we're going to need to pluck up these other armies fairly swiftly. Hopefully we'll be able to cut off the Austrians. I guess we're not really in any severe rush to declare war on Mexico, although because we have mobilized, it does mean that we're going to be spending quite a few of our resources. We are going to be spending quite a lot of money, basically. We're going to be spending a lot of money to keep our reserves mobilized if we're not just immediately attacking. And look, that Austrian army fell apart like it was made out of paper because it was just made out of peasant levies. Union busting, we're not going to do that. We don't really want to upset our people to the point that they'll just constantly rebel forever if we can avoid it. Although realistically that is probably going to be at least one of the outcomes of this just state of perpetual war. So we will actually go ahead and declare war on Mexico right now. Let's go take Arizona. And it looks like we'll only be able to get, well, Arizona and maybe Nevada, Utah. And then we'll leave California for last, although California really is the gem in the crown. But we'll wait for now. if they get their independence, then they do, and we'll just have to deal with that. We might even release Deseret just for the sake of good borders. We will go rush over and attack that one army. We're probably not even going to really bother with the actual territories we're hoping to take. Haiti wants to ally us, and we will go ahead and ally them back. Meanwhile, battles raging in the old world. Looks like we've won. Where are they retreating? Edir. We'll go follow them over, and we'll just bring the whole army. Alright, and we've won that immediately, which is a good sign, as far as signs go. Alright, so they do still have a large army over in Asia Minor. That's probably going to be problematic, and it might even mean that they're able to maintain control over their countryside, which is definitely something we do not want to have happen. We will continue letting these areas move ahead. Wow, okay, French-Chinese Empire is growing pretty strong, so we need to take out France at some point, but they'll probably go to war with Germany before us, as the AI really is not able to tell what sort of machinations we have. So they probably won't interfere with us until it's too late. At least we can hope. Alright, and we're going to let these guys move forward. And then once they get into our territory, now we're going to just go try to destroy their force. And I don't really fear the Mexican military at this point. I don't think it'll be really a threat in any legitimate sense. Although I have been mistaken in the past, so we'll see. Alright, let's see, these Tunisian nationalists are just kind of roving about, not actually taking over Tunisia. A bunch of people want to ally us, a lot of them are in our sphere, so we'll go ahead and do that. And speaking of our sphere, we have quite a bit of influence to shift around. In fact, a lot of these countries are joining our sphere right now, and that's very good news. Hawaii is in our sphere, maybe we'll be able to annex them diplomatically. Although that does, of course, remain to be seen. It looks like we have rebels in Hawaii and Honduras. I imagine Hawaii is just going to collapse to them since they're one province minor. Yeah, Hawaiian reactionaries. Well, that's unfortunate. Let's see. Doesn't look like we can annex Hawaii, so I suppose it doesn't matter too much. Poor Honduras is Central American nationalists. That's kind of interesting. I wonder what they'll turn into. If they turn into the United States of Central America, that would be pretty cool. Alright, we're probably losing a considerable number of men, less than the Mexican forces are, so that's a victory in a way. Well, in really a considerable way. Alright, and we're only 6% of the way through that war, so that's going to be going on for quite some time. We're really in no hurry against the Ottomans, so we'll probably just stop attacking them where we're at. We'll just lay off for a moment. When does Austria lose its truce? With North Germany and Italy, it is in a year, so we have about a year before we really need to worry about the Austrians arming themselves in any real way. Since I don't know, but I don't believe they're able to, they're not able to recruit regiments while they have those limitations imposed on them. So we don't actually need to worry about them for a year, so we can just focus all of our efforts against Mexico. And that should be enough. Looks like all of these rebels are doing very well, and we'll hopefully just, well, I guess not really hopefully, since we don't want them to get their independence, since we want the territories. But I guess it's not really the worst thing. Alright, we're not actually going to attack those guys since they've had a decent amount of time to just dig in, and I really don't want to lose a large portion of our armed forces for no reason whatsoever. And at this point we are one of those large peasant armies that I always say is, you know, not really an effective force. But we do have some elements of actual military, so we are going to be able to pull this war off. It just might not be as efficient or as ideal as we would like. And honestly, it seems at this point that, well, I suppose Mormon nationalists and other groups are occupying these various territories. So I don't think they're actually going to get their independence. which is somewhat good, I suppose, for our interests. Give our people a slightly better minimum wage, and we'll attack these guys in the mountains since there's basically no one there. Alright, yeah, whatever you could say about the, I guess, usefulness of any particular element of our military, the military as a whole is doing very well. Perhaps well enough that we don't even need to worry about it or very actively manage it, although we still will because we do need to press forward in Mexico. We do also have to press forward over here against the Ottomans. So we don't have enough troops to really man this whole area and also move forward. It looks like Mexican forces are advancing against us somewhat like we had predicted. So that's good. We'll go split these forces up a little bit and take advantage of their hubris. It looks like I accidentally moved some of our armies in directly over Mexican forces, not right here, but up there where it is going to be much more of a problem. We did win right there, though, and it pushed them back into just more of their forces, so that's good news. That's probably a battle that will be lost. We can bring our actual military over to bear, and that would probably help. We'll also just keep occupying their mountains as much as we can. Alright, so those nationalists are doing their thing. Our army is on its way to deal with those other communist rebels. Spain wants to ally us, as does Nicaragua. We'll go ahead and accept. Alright. So what do we need to do? Not all that much. Oh, we can go just defeat that one Mexican army. Oh, did we actually win that battle? Crazy. I guess they saw the reinforcements we were going to have and decided against staying. Which I suppose does make a good deal of sense. Alright, so what do we need to do? Well, we won another Battle of Washington. It doesn't look like we took any casualties. We will just go charge these forces since we have so many troops just standing around waiting for them. And when that one group goes there, it'll kick out their dig-in bonus. And then we'll be able to just destroy them with, well, really just a complete surround. Alright. So that'll be a little bit costly in terms of lives, but it'll hopefully just be effective more or less in a military sense, just getting rid of the Mexican forces there. I didn't actually foresee them attacking right there, but it's all good because we already won that. So we'll actually send this force and split it apart so that it just destroys that one other group. And there we go, we have enough reinforcements there. We will cut them off from being able to retreat as best we can. And when their forces are all destroyed, then we're basically done with the war, as typically occurs. Oh, and they're actually not retreating where I thought they would be. So I'll just bring these forces down. Alright, cool. Mexican communists. Not really the type of rebellion we want to see, but it is a rebellion nonetheless. And I suppose national instability for Mexico is a net plus for us at the moment. I'm really ready for the point where we don't have to go to war with them, though, just since it is a bit of a pain. And they are, if not a threat, then at least they are a bit of an annoyance to fight. Alright, and we're just going to keep advancing against the Ottomans. We're not going to really worry about them getting behind our lines, since it seems like it's pretty much an inevitability. At any rate, we are not really fighting wars that are tremendous national security concerns. We're not fighting wars where if we lose, we're doomed, or we have severe risk of our country collapsing. We're at this point mainly just fighting wars where we're just trying to take things and achieve our objectives. And at this point, I think we have more than enough time to achieve all of our objectives before the end of the game, so we don't really need to rush for that. And realistically, we'll be able to not conquer, but certainly dominate the world way before 1936, I'm pretty sure. The big issue is definitely going to be the issue of... Let's see how to describe this. The issue we're going to face, and let's actually try to get some... Well, we don't have any techs that'll directly affect our tax income, so we'll just chill on that for now. What was I going to say? We don't have to worry about the clock because we will be able to declare war at least once on all of the great powers of the world, even if it just comes down to us going over the infamy limit and them declaring war on us. The big concern is just that we have a military strong enough that we're able to fight that fight when it comes. And I don't think that it necessarily needs to come. We could occupy all of the major capitals of the world before ever really getting to a point. What is Brazil calling us for? Conquering La Plata? We're not going to do that. But we're basically probably going to be able to get to a position where we can have everyone conceivably under occupation by the end of the game. The issue is we're going to need the military that's powerful enough to actually do it. And that's really the big constraint that we have. If we even get down to the point where it takes a stack of 10 divisions, brigades, I believe it's brigades. Yeah, brigades. If we get to the point where it's 10 brigades per enemy capital, that'll really, holding those capitals will still spread us very thin for actually going and taking over more places. I think right now we would conceivably have enough forces to occupy, or to maintain the occupations of all the capitals of the world. We just wouldn't have enough forces to get to the point where we're occupying new capitals. And at this point that's more relevant to our interests and our goals. Let's see, they still have 57 brigades, so we're probably going to have to go into Asia Minor to really soundly defeat the Ottomans. We'll probably go and defeat Austro-Hungary first. By doing so, we're almost certainly going to provoke a response by the nations around them. It looks like Poland's actually dealing with the Austrians for us, which is pretty helpful. And by provoke a response, I mean Italy's probably going to jump on them. Poland is already doing it. Romania might even do it. And that'll be an interesting thing, as we'll probably really help out the small nations of the world before eventually they end up powerful enough that we'll have to go and occupy them as well. So we might end up with a very interesting looking world, just by the nations that find themselves in existence at the end of this. And I suppose also the territory that they control. Alright, so let's see. At this point, we have 44 war score against Mexico. We will go ahead and add Nevada, Utah. We can't take California since it's too expensive, but this means we'll only have to do one more war. And yeah, that'll be it. That'll be it for our really just harassing of Mexico. And because that's a war goal that we just already have, we don't really need to worry really at all about our war exhaustion. So that's all good news. We will go ahead and defeat their communist rebels just because we don't want them unsieging any of the territory we're already taking over. And eventually we will probably have to clear out the rebels from those northern territories, but that's really just to be expected. Alright, and I think I might have just inadvertently sent 60,000 men to the same province, so we'll try to spread them out a little bit. Alright, and time to just march towards Austria. We'll finish the occupation of the rest of these. Well, actually, I don't really know if we need to. In fact, we'll just march forward into Austria and take over their provinces and hopefully spark some sort of large Austrian rebellion. So that could be interesting. We'll see how that all plays out, though. Mexico should fall fairly soon. What's interesting is how much this game doesn't anticipate these sorts of tactics and, I guess, war goals. Which, I mean, is sensible. I mean, I don't see why anyone would do this other than, I guess, kind of to prove a point, sort of, which is kind of the point of this series, is to just see what is, to see if this is effective, I guess, in a really weird way that the game wasn't designed or anticipated to have happen, really. Tunisian nationalists are still taking over a whole bunch of stuff. That's good news for us. We are taking a little bit of attrition in Austro-Hungarian waters, so we will have to go rush over there. A new election. And we'll go rush over there, hopefully take that California city. And we may end up inadvertently holding Mexico into some sort of semi-permanent state of occupation. But we'll see how it plays out. Hopefully they'll accept defeat fairly soon. And it looks like that moment should have already come. And they will, in fact, accept our deal. And there we go, we've liberated 2 of those American states. American, of course, referring to ourselves, since we are the Confederate States of America, so that's American as American gets. Alright, we will demobilize, at least in this world. And there we go, we have 2 armies just chilling, that's good enough, we'll move them back. Neither of them are really armies in the sense that we would want them to be. And now we are making a budget surplus. So that's all good. Give people slightly less long work days. And we will just start moving into Austrian territory proper. We will rush over to I guess, Trieste. Just for the sake of securing our control of... What am I even saying? We want to rush over to Trieste so that our navy stops taking attrition. So we'll take that over fairly quickly. We don't have very many armies in Europe, but that doesn't matter too much. We'll just rush over to Vienna and hopefully just kick their war exhaustion up to the point that they are, well, just forced into a major rebellion that occupies the rest of their countryside. Really. And we'll go destroy the remaining Ottoman armies wherever we end up finding them, which is kind of an open question in and of itself. But I mean, I guess Asia Minor is a solid enough answer. And we have met with Polish forces, and they're doing a pretty good job of taking over the territory they want to conquer. Fairly soon we'll have California, just in about 5 years. Go ahead and keep encouraging laissez-faire, since we don't really want our people to be more socialistic, as that will just make them clamor for reforms very much, and that's deeply problematic for us, or at least it has the potential to be. Alright, so other than that, just moving forward into Austria-Hungary. I predict the Italians will declare war on them as soon as their truce is over, which it is, which also means that they are now able to construct new armies. Although, interestingly, they have not yet begun to do so. Oh, looks like the Ottomans were able to build a unit or 2, just a single unit right now, but they will probably build more. So we'll have to send this group back, or at least, yeah, this one group back, just to deal with that. And it looks like the Austro-Hungarians are constructing new units. So let's go prevent that. Oh, what is this? The Germans are fighting. Who are they fighting? Okay, so we need to have it update. I guess we'll show when countries demobilize. We'll also have it show when countries go to war. So, not ledger, what am I doing? Game options, no. Message settings. Declares. Yeah, we'll just have it show, and we'll actually have it show when a nation declares independence, since it's also kind of interesting. And look, we missed it. Tunis is free. Congratulations, Tunis. Alright, so it is actually a couple groups of enemies right there, so we will go ahead and just try to deal with that. The Prussians are rolling in, and what are they trying to take? It's the Second Great War, and it definitely doesn't seem to be going in the Austrians' favor. And they're trying to take Lombardia, which they will almost certainly take. Alright, keep them just conscious, not militant. And we really just have to occupy the cities, or I guess the provinces, where they are recruiting from. Although it doesn't even really matter all that much. France, for being as powerful of a state as they are, doesn't really... Let's see, we'll keep opening that up. As powerful of a state as the French are, and you can tell that they are because of all of their Chinese territories, they don't seem to be very good at all at holding on to their actual possessions in the metropole, and hopefully that continues. If the Germans lose their war against the French in Europe because they're so busy just slamming against the already destroyed Austrians, then that would kind of be telling of the AI, but it would also be helpful to us because we're going to eventually want to attack Germany anyway. So in a way, we might not even really want to be rooting for the Germans right now. We may be wanting to root for the French. Although, who's really to say? It doesn't seem like the French are in any great position, but I am worried by how much of China they control. That could be very problematic. What will be more problematic is the Russian-Chinese Empire. Just since we do have to fight Russia, and it looks as though they've been staying out of war for quite a good portion of time. Okay, so Japan added Korea to their sphere. Okay, that makes sense. Alright, so hopefully rebels start rising up in Austria. It won't really help us right now. It should help us in the nearish future, though. They don't have any brigades, and of course they don't. We're now the number 7 great power, though. Alright, and France is just continually getting bludgeoned outside of France. Or, they're getting bludgeoned in a way that pushes them outside of France, which is interesting and not great. Also, Austria can't raise troops for another 5 years, so that's basically done, and neither can the French, but they still have 114 brigades, presumably all in China. So we'll go ahead and just station one group in Vienna. And I'll start getting commerce tax because they do lead to some tax efficiency. And with the force occupying Vienna, we're basically free from worrying about what happens in Austro-Hungary for another 5 years, as they cannot raise forces. And neither can the French, so if we do get into a war with them, we can conquer metropolitan France fairly easily, since presumably they lost all of their forces during the war. We will continue to encourage soldier pops within our most populous states, and we can almost build a full army in both of those regions. We will go ahead and, I believe, Laredo is still the rally point in North America, so we'll just group these forces up and find out what we actually need. Guatemala has declared a war on Mexico, which is pretty interesting, probably after the Yucatan. Alright, so let's see. This group forms one coherent army, and then one that is absolutely not an actual army whatsoever. So let's see, though, we only need to raise 3 artillery, 2 dragoons, and that will bring them up to a full army. And we'll just get that created. Let's see, in Africa we don't really need much. We could probably just disband our undermanned brigades. We'll actually just move this force up to Nadel, I suppose, and we will make that our rally point for the moment. We'll move away from Monrovia since we want a more central position. Alright, and let's see, we need a dragoon and 3 infantry. Alright, and that completes those 2 armies. That'll make them well, more of actual just armies and not what they were already, which is just kind of half armies that aren't really as effective. Since as long as we can get everything to be universally as effective as everything else, then we don't really need to worry too much, and we're able to just focus on the more large-scale strategic sort of ventures. Let's see, we'll set these guys up as the rebel suppressors. There aren't very many rebels right now, but that's subject to change. And see, we're already rank 7 of great powers, in part because we have just smashed the Austrians. I mean, admittedly, the Germans did most of it, but we helped. Speaking of the Germans, they have almost 1 million troops in their military, so they're definitely going to be the final boss, although the Russians and their also almost 1 million troops could also be, well, really the Russians and the Germans are going to be final bosses. The UK is, well, okay, so we have these major tier powers who we are not yet occupying, and the act of occupying them is going to be pretty difficult to start. So those wars are going to be essentially comparable to the final Great Wars that we fought in our Greece campaign recently. I'm not really sure what the end game is going to look like for our pragmatic sort of confederacy, and I'm almost entirely certain that the end game for our good confederacy is going to be just fighting off constant American interventions, which admittedly would eventually start to make us question just how much good we were actually doing. And that's an interesting thing we're probably going to have to deal with in that campaign, but I'm not sure. We haven't got there yet. Oh, and it looks like we won that battle, so we'll just charge after them. We'll leave this group behind. Can we just get that army to stop? We can. And I'll just land these dudes, and we'll just rush forward on land. Alright, hopefully, there we go. We actually beat them there, which is great news. And I'm not really sure what we're going to have to do to ensure victory over really all Ottoman forces for the rest of time, although it could be a lot. At any rate, we can go cut these guys off, and that will be a good start. And I'm fairly sure they'll have rebellions to a considerable degree fairly soon. They do have a larger army than I would have liked to see. So we'll just try to cut these forces off from one another. They might get us and intervene right there, but that's kind of good because it's in the mountains. It's not that great because we don't have any forces ready to intervene on our behalf. Keep upsetting the liberals. Looks like Austro-Hungary is not quite ready to rebel, which is problematic. That army will hopefully group up and be a full force. We're really taking a while to get these resources. What's going on with that? Okay, I guess they're just on their way. Alright, well, we will not worry for right this moment. Oh man, unfortunately more Ottoman forces are just hurtling into us. Okay, they did stop, but we have to retreat with that group, and they did take some considerable casualties. So we might even want to just retreat from there. Alright, so we're going to have to create 3 new groups of infantry for that army since we did lose those. Let's see, canned food and small arms. We'll go ahead and just make a stockpile of those resources and a bunch of others while we're at it. Things like wine. We have a lot of money, so we can do this. Canned food is definitely a necessity. Explosives for our engineers. Regular clothes will be a big one. Alright, that should be it. We're losing a lot of money, but that's just going to happen. Liquor. We need liquor for the troops. Alright, so we have a little foothold over in this part of the Ottoman Empire. We're going to abandon it and move over somewhere else. Our people probably want to, okay, more social reforms. We can do that. We'll give them safety reforms. And we'll probably stick to the most popular reforms we can from now on, just to placate our people as much as possible for the shortest amount of investment. Now this group will transport over to Africa, which we're going to have to retake their coastlines. But that's fine. Oh, and Tunis is an unciv, not that we can actually take advantage of that, but someone else probably will. So they're actually very, well, not smart, but they're not stupid with their troop displacement. They have a large army, larger than we actually have in the area, and that's not good. Hopefully the Austrians have a bit of a rebellion at some point. It'll be a while, probably, before we actually see that. Well, if it's going to be a while, then we may as well not park these troops in Vienna for the next several years, and if a rebellion does occur, then Well, that'll actually help us out in some ways. Alright, and these troops should all pull together fairly soon. Looks like we still have to wait for one group to be constructed, although they're on their way right now. Africa, as it turns out, is hard to transverse. And I suppose so is our own country. It's really because we're going speed 3, not speed 5, I bet. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to keep our forces more or less where they're at. We're not going to provoke an Ottoman attack. At least not yet. We'll group these forces up right there. I wonder if I could just set a rally point. Oh, cool. You can set a rally point in enemy territory. Well, that's actually very helpful. We'll just send those two up. Do we have any other groups already ready? Yes. So that's good. Then I'll actually get that army up to full strength. And then we can put it back into the fight. Go ahead and get some more female suffrage, perhaps. Haven't quite got there yet, and we probably won't for a while. Our sphere, however, is coming along nicely, and that's very good. So one of the benefits of what we're doing, if we take a look at migrations, is that we are getting quite a few immigrants. Canada is as well, but as we pass more reforms, we should get even more than they do. We might not want to add Argentina or Brazil to our sphere of influence. Let's see, let's look at... Okay, so we actually haven't even done that yet. We're focusing on these states so far. Eventually we'll get to there, though, but we might not want to, because we want to cut off immigration to all of these other states. So we're probably going to have to occupy all of the other American countries, and then we'll get every immigrant in the world, and there will be a ton of immigrants because we are, as I keep bringing up, just occupying all of these various countries. So a lot of their populations are going to try to flee, and when they try to flee, they're going to come to America. But North America is going to be just Canada, who we will hopefully occupy, the United States, who is currently occupied, and us. So as we go and bring this down to South America, which we will do after we defeat perhaps a decent amount of these forces, well, we'll just kind of see where the situation takes us. France is demobilizing, that's pretty good. Poland is also demobilizing. Alright, so where's our other transport fleet? It's got to be somewhere. I don't think we ever named it. Oh, and it's just right here. Let's go ahead and name it while we're at this. Alright, and we're just going to park both transports more or less where they need to be. And we're going to send all of these troops simultaneously from 1st Transport and the 2nd Transport Fleet right into Bursa, which is a mountain range which will hopefully help us out for this next part. And we're going to keep them together. Ooh, we're actually taking a lot of attrition, so we'll split them up. Oh, we could actually maybe cut these guys off. We'll keep them together. Okay, and now we're under attack, and that's really exactly what we hoped for. So we'll go pluck these dudes up. We don't really need our transports to be involved now. We do want to pick up these other armies once this final group of infantry gets there. And we could just cut them off. In fact, that's probably the best thing to do. We'll have to split one of our armies up considerably, but that's entirely worthwhile. So I'll just split these two groups up. Alright, this should happen fairly rapidly. It looks like we actually already won the battle, which is not actually good. Where are they going? Bula and Izmit. We'll send that one full group over. And I'm not sure, but we might be able to beat them, sort of. This is really problematic. They're going to have a lot of defensive bonuses. Oh, although no, it actually looks like they won't. And what just happened? Alright, so it looks like Egypt declared war on the Ottomans, which is pretty cool. And it looks like the Ottoman forces are going to roll up and find us and our forces already there with the area under our control. So that's good news for us. Alright, so what are we going to do? We'll split this group in half again. And we'll probably not be there in time to destroy them, although it looks like we will, actually. So that worked out quite nicely. Alright, and there goes hopefully the rest of the Ottoman military. We'll have to combine these forces back together. Alright, and that should be good. They are creating units again, not terribly surprising. Oh, but look at that, Ottoman communists. We're going to let them take control, and then they'll have to deal with anti-communist rebels, and communist rebels increase the likelihood of more communist rebels in adjacent states. So when we let the Ottomans fall to communism, it'll really, it works like this in Victoria too. It'll create a domino of just communist rebellions in all the surrounding countries. We can enact women's suffrage, so we will go ahead and do that. Congratulations, women. And hopefully Austria-Hungary will collapse to a communist rebellion. And that'd be pretty good. We'll go ahead and just occupy all those areas. We will not research any technology until the dawn of the 20th century. And then we'll rush gas attack. Well, yeah, we'll probably rush gas attack. I'm not sure how much we'll need it, but it may come in handy, and it will definitely come in handy as we occupy more foreign capitals. Unfortunately, we have to start afresh with Hawaii, since they did have their reactionary rebellion. So they're probably a presidential dictatorship or some other form of weird autocracy. Alright, what is this? Romania also declared war on the Ottomans. That's pretty cool. Kind of worried they'll attack Constantinople and kill those communist rebels, but we really like communist rebels, at least right now, at least in foreign countries. So, yeah. We've managed to successfully export the eternal occupation to at least the Ottomans and part of the Austrian Empire. And we've blocked them off from the sea, so their war exhaustion should be rising pretty rapidly, 62%, as opposed to the Ottomans and their 100%. So that should mean rebellions are fairly frequent. At least we can hope so. Oh, Confederate communists. See, that's also kind of the thing, is is communists really love more communists. We'll leave our forces in Washington, D.C. because that's basically of paramount importance. We cannot possibly allow America to get back on its feet. And we'll go ahead and raise an entirely new army out of our North American holdings, really the actual country. And this group is ready to be transported over, so we'll take them on over. Kind of used over a lot in that sentence, but what are you gonna do? Oh man. So, oh god, we're being attacked. What is it? It's a single commerce raider, so we shouldn't actually lose anything. Still a little worrying. Alright, looks like we managed that pretty well. Mormon nationalists, okay. So yeah, this is what I meant about our people might become progressively more just upset as this goes on. I mean, it's somewhat to be expected. We are forcing them into an eternal war against the whole world, so we're not really only going to be occupying the rest of the world, we're already going to have to be dealing a lot with occupying our own country against domestic revolt. So we're probably going to just allow a fascist revolt to take control over our country if it ever comes to that, which it may. Since we are kind of acting like a fascist dictatorship already, so we may as well embrace it, I suppose. And fascists allow slavery. In fact, they're kind of pretty keen on the whole idea. So that'll stick to it, and I mean, not to knock any fascists, but it is pretty much an evil ideology in a lot of ways. So yeah, makes sense that we'll kind of be embracing that. No offense to any fascists out there, I get that. I get your thing, guys, but let's be honest, it's kind of evil from the like Christian perspective. Not that we're going evil by the Christian perspective specifically, but like I don't know. How else are we really going to define morality other than from like a vaguely religious standpoint? I mean, because really, let's not get really too epistemological, I suppose it would be. Oh, okay, so I should probably stop recording tonight because I am clearly getting a little too tired for this. But we are actually at an hour, so that works out very well. Japan wants to offer us an alliance. We'll go ahead and accept because there's no real reason not to. And it looks like there's Ottoman reactionaries, so that's pretty cool. They'll help us fight the communists, sort of, vaguely. But anyway, so yeah, we've managed to export this this whole little goal of ours. We can't go to war against Italy because they are, unfortunately, quite allied to Germany, and we are nowhere near a position to fight the Germans. We could maybe fight Russia, but they're allied to the UK, so that's a power block we really cannot interfere with. So what can we do? Well, one of the big things is we do actually need to go and deal with Argentina and Brazil. Those places are taking a lot of immigrants that are rightfully ours. Canada would be next, but we can't really deal with Canada right now. But really, the more immigrants we get, the sooner we will have a large enough army that we could take out one of the other significant world powers. If we just check the ledger really quickly and see what we're up against, the United Kingdom is the most populous state in the world, followed by Russia, followed by France, followed by a Chinese state, and then the Germans. We're actually, wow, we're actually pretty high up there, 58 million people in the Confederate States of America. So, we're also at some point going to, of course, have to occupy Japan because they are a considerable power. I guess we could just aim at it and go for France now, and just constantly be going from just least to most successful state, but once we hit Italy, that brings in Germany. Japan we could probably do fairly easily if we can just afford the navy. Do we have naval bases upgraded as much as we need them to be? It looks like we do. Can we build naval vessels? We can build battleships, so we'll start building a slew of those, although that brings us over our naval capacity, which we're going to run into pretty quickly. So we'll upgrade these naval bases before we end this game, or I guess this session of this game. And I'm actually fairly happy with how, despite the vast differences in what's actually happened in each of these campaigns, we are actually staying fairly similar time-wise. Just in the sort of year that the game is actually currently at. So that's very good. We will just upgrade all of those naval bases really across everywhere we can. The fight for Africa is going to be a tremendous pain when we fight places like the British, really. So that's going to be problematic to some degree. I guess it really remains to be seen how that actually comes about and unfolds. But we are pretty limited. We can go to war against the French, and in fact that's probably a good target, since we do have a lot of our armies in Europe already. But then that's another European capital we'll have to keep our troops occupying. But I guess that would bring us over into China, and once we occupy French China, that's its own thing. And we do have to worry about their African holdings, although they don't actually have any, except for right there, and it doesn't look like they have any troops. Alright, so we're in a very interesting strategic position. We do need to upgrade our navy significantly. What we might do, go to war... Oh, here's the thing. That's the... Oh. We can't even go to war with France to get control over the channel to send troops over into the UK, because they don't have it, because the Germans are that successful. But I was going... well, okay, I'll figure this all out before the next episode. Sorry for dragging it on, just thinking of all these random-ish things. So thank you very much for watching. I do mean that. I do think this is going to be very interesting with how it ends up being. I'm not sure how interesting the actual route to it's going to be. Please let me know if you prefer more just like minute to minute what we're doing, or more of the large grand ideas behind it. It is somewhat difficult to get behind the grand ideas, and I really don't want to just have it be an entire I guess, video of an hour long of, and then we move this army there, and then we move this army there, and then we move this army there, which I feel like it kind of is. And I hope to avoid that. So, anyway, any feedback's amazing. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see how this turns out. Thanks again.